Hello and welcome to PSY 7103, assignment 6 of 12. I'm Dr. Joel B. Goodin, and welcome. Here we have some instructions as always. This assignment will consist of two parts. Both parts will be combined into one document, so don't submit two documents. That's annoying. And submit them for your assignment for the week. For part one of this task, we're going to do these things. So let's go ahead and say part one. Or we could say part A if we wanted. Explain these things. So you need to look into the resources. Basically, iterator reliability describes responses to items in a questionnaire that should be similar when two different interviewers administer it. So the responses should not depend on the person who is administering the questionnaire. The agreement between the two responses represents what we call inter-rater reliability, so that whoever is rating whatever's going on, or let's say two people are observing a track meet, and or maybe something a little more abstract, like if you watch the Olympics at all, maybe a gymnast doing a floor exercise or something. And you want, generally, the raters, the people that hold up the cards to say 10 or whatever, you want them to be similar. They're not going to be exactly the same because they're different people, but we want some level of a decent amount of agreement, which is called inter-rater reliability. Test-retest reliability, also called repeated measures reliability. The questionnaire or the instrument should give similar responses when used over time. So unless there is an actual change in the outcome, we shouldn't see a change. So if we administer a questionnaire over 2 time points with like a difference of 1 day, then the responses should be similar unless there's been like a stressful event, something happened overnight that might change these the outcomes between these 2 time points. The agreement between these two responses represents test-retest reliability. So it's important that the time between two responses be appropriate to whatever you're trying to measure. The difference should not be so large that the change in the response is an actual change in the response. In other words, let's think about like blood pressure. If we're measuring the blood pressure, then the changes over a couple of days may represent an actual change. So if there's weak agreement between the two measurements, then we shouldn't conclude that the measuring instrument, the cuff on your arm, the blood pressure cuff, is not reliable or is unreliable. But when we are assessing physical health or mental health, there should not be major changes in the response over the same time period unless there has been an acute physical or mental health event. So in this case, the agreement should be high for a questionnaire to be reliable. You want agreement to be high, or consistency among the measurements. In terms of face validity, typically I describe face validity as, does it measure what it appears to measure? There are a few different points of view on what face validity actually means, but typically I define it as, does it measure what it appears to measure? So face validity might be asking you some questions about your hobbies, when actually I've created some questions about your hobbies, but I'm trying to elicit information that will, or obtain information that will tell me about your personality or about something else that's not very clear. In that case, it would not be very face valid, and face validity would be an example of a type of validity that we're okay with it not being high sometimes. Sometimes we want it to be very clear what we're measuring. Other times we want to sort of mask what we're measuring so that people don't try to have presentation bias, try to appear a certain way, like um, to say the right things, or to be a happy person, or to answer things in a way that makes them look better, or be the answers that they think the researcher wants. Um, so predictive validity is like a scale evaluates a condition in the present, and that predicts some event or condition in the future. So for example, we develop a scale to assess the clinical, demographic features of patients with that are pre-diabetic, and we identify that they're pre-diabetic, so they're given a score, and based on the score we would like to be able to predict which patients will develop diabetes. That's the whole idea of identifying them as pre-diabetic. Of course, this event will occur in the future, so this form of validity is called predictive validity. If it doesn't do a good job of predicting diabetes, then we have a bad measurement of pre-diabetes. Finally, we have concurrent validity, which is a type of criterion validity. It should be remembered that questionnaires have been designed to measure specific outcomes. So the measurement from a questionnaire should match with an existing standard. So let's say I wanted to create a measurement of anxiety. Well, there's a standard measurement out there already. So first we have to ask, why am I creating a brand new tool? But say I have a good reason for it. I would want to develop my instrument on anxiety, the Goodin anxiety questionnaire, the GAC. And I would want to compare, I would want to have, say, 100 or 200 people take the GAQ and also take the Beck Anxiety Inventory, the BAI. And I would hope that if my GAQ is psychometrically valid, if it has what's called concurrent validity, then the scores that students or that participants have on the GAQ will be similar to their scores on the Beck Anxiety Inventory. And so I'm comparing my new instrument to a tried and true psychometrically sound instrument with the purpose of sort of seeing if the Beck Anxiety Inventory may sort of identify as somebody as high anxiety, mine should do the same. If it does not, then perhaps this lack of concurrent validity is a good sign that my instrument is not well developed in that area. So I should take a look at it again. Another thing you could do is, like, if you were like trying to say, how much time do people spend in the sun? Well, you could ask them to fill out a questionnaire, but you could also have them like a smartwatch with a GPS in it, and you could ask them to turn over their GPS data. And you could compare their GPS data for like outside, were they outside in an outside area during a certain time of day or something, and compare that to what they put on the questionnaire, and that would be concurrent validity. Measuring against something we trust a little bit more, measuring the data and the measurement against something we trust more is the idea behind concurrent validity. Once you've explained these for each term, provide an example of how you could test for that term. You could actually you could use actual examples from the articles you've read that you should cite. Um, so an example in this study, they did they measured concurrent validity by doing whatever they did, and then for part 2. Of this task, select 2 articles from your annotated bibliography and explain how the authors addressed issues of reliability and validity. You can focus on the ones that we've talked about above. That's typically the best place to start. So 2 articles for each article discuss any and all issues of reliability and validity by name. It's good to say and then just to describe it again, and then say by having 2 officials score gymnastics routines and comparing their scores to one another. The study by so-and-so measured inter-rater reliability. So it's good to sort of explain, here's how I know this. Here's what it is, and therefore that's what they did. Especially if you get into types of reliability and validity that you haven't defined in part 1. You want to say, well, I know what so we're looking at this is an example of criterion validity, because criterion validity says X, and this study did X, and you want to explain what X is. So you're going to do that, and just sort of be thorough with 2 different articles about how they, any mention they had of issues of reliability and validity, and they may not mention it very directly. It may be passive, so you may have to read into the article and say, I noticed that they had 2 raters, so it appears that they had some a way to measure or justify potential inter-rater reliability. So you might have to read between the lines a bit. So you're going to do that sort of an analysis of psychometrics for 2 articles. Select 2 articles. In my opinion, these don't have to be from your annotated bibliography. You can explain how the authors, you can choose new articles if you can't really find any that have any discussion of sort of reliability and validity, and then explain how the authors addressed issues of reliability and validity. So what did they do, if anything? And they may, again, have not been very obvious about doing it, but by having 2 raters, for instance, that's a good sign of inter-rater reliability. By having 2 different instruments, that might be concurrent validity. By sort of masking what the instrument was really measuring, that could be about phase validity. You get the idea. So you want to explain your logic for why whatever you're citing from the article is an example of whatever reliability or validity you're discussing. And you want to discuss more than one, if at all possible. I would suspect that professors will not be impressed with less than 2 examples from each article. Support your assignment with at least 5 scholarly resources. Especially, this is pretty easy. You've got 5 different types of reliability and validity here, so you should easily be able to put a citation at least there, and then include some citations throughout. So you will have 5 scholarly resources. Just make sure they're scholarly. Actual peer-reviewed articles is best. In addition to these specified resources, other appropriate scholarly resources, including seminal articles, that means old articles that were maybe from the originator of an idea, whoever first coined the term of predictive validity, for instance. You can include that article as well. Typically, we like to stick to very current articles, but sometimes it's important to go back to something Freud or Adler or Yalom or Vygotsky or somebody said that may not be very current. It doesn't make it not useful, and so we want to go back to some of that sort of more dated theory and research that they might provide. This should be 3 to 5 pages. I would err on the side of more 5 pages, not including title and references. Your assignment should demonstrate, again, thoughtful consideration of the ideas and concepts presented in the course by providing new thoughts and insights. You need to be insightful here. Just say, well, and that's part of reading between the lines will show how you were insightful, how even if it wasn't obvious that they had this type of reliability or validity, you were able to sort of tease it out and make a case for why they had this type of reliability or validity. Your response should reflect scholarly writing. Again, improving your writing each week. Reach out to the Academic Success Center if you're struggling. Be sure to adhere to North Central University's academic integrity policy, which means no matching content to previous published content on the web or scholarly articles. Just don't do that. And don't try to get away with anything. Just write your own, do your own work, paraphrase in your own words, even if your words are not extremely scholarly yet. Keep working on those. Work with the ASC, sorry. Work with the ASC to develop your vocabulary. Work online. Use tools and resources. Sometimes synonyms work, like right-clicking on a Word document, Word, let's say integrity, for instance. Synonyms, well, it should have said like character, reputation, words like that. Let's say reliability, dependability, consistency, trustworthiness, steadfastness. So sometimes you can use synonyms, but you have to make sure that the connotation of the word you're using to replace is accurate. Otherwise, you'll look a little foolish. You'll look like somebody that just stole a sentence from an article, pasted it, and then just went through, and I have students do this, and search for synonyms to change the wording up. That's not true paraphrasing. You're not putting it into your own words. That can help you in terms of using scholarly words to replace some of your own. Put it in your own words first, even if they're simple, and then try to improve those simple words by right-clicking, searching for synonyms, and choosing words that are connotatively the same but help you use a stronger word. I think Grammarly can help you with some of those words as well, with replacing simple wording with more scholarly wording. And so that is this assignment. It's really a focus on psychometrics and then applying your knowledge of psychometrics. I look forward to seeing you again in week 7. Thank you.